Thanks for joining us today. So we're gonna, I should say Julia is gonna be talking today about the role of learning communities on creating positive outcomes for online students, especially in first year learning. So let me go ahead and introduce us properly. If you wanna jump to the next slide, Julie. So as I mentioned, I'm co-founder and CEO at Inscribe. For those of you that aren't familiar with us, we are a virtual community platform that is designed to help connect students with classmates, faculty, and staff across their university so that they can have a dynamic place to ask questions, find answers, build relationships, and share ideas with the folks that they're learning with. And really, the star of the show today is Dr. Juliet Greenwood, and she is the Vice Dean for Education Initiatives at Arizona State University. She works with all of the units across the ASU campus, including deans, department chairs, faculty, and staff, to strengthen online programming and drive course development to transform the student learning experience. Julie oversees all of the instructional design and new media, adaptive and personalized learning, assessment and compliance, and the Ed Plus Action Lab. And she uses data analytics and education technology to improve and equalize degree completion. She is also the liaison to the University Innovation Alliance, if you all are familiar with that group, and the Association of Public Land-Grant Universities Personalized Learning Consortium. So we are super excited that Dr. Greenwood could join us today. And I'm really going to turn the stage over to her to talk about the work that she and her colleagues at Arizona State have been doing. And I'm here to fill in and help answer questions along the way. Please, don't hesitate to ask questions as we go. My colleague Danielle and I will both be here to answer, and we'll, grab some of those questions and either you can ask them live or we'll answer them throughout the session. Take it away, Julie.
Great. Thank you. And thank you, Katie and Ezra, and certainly want to thank OLC for hosting us. Very excited to share this story. And I think it's really a story about faculty and student success. I always see the success of our students moves in parallel with the success of our faculty. And then really about partnerships and partnerships with the faculty and with Inscribe, with our partners across Ed Plus, instructional design. And so I'll try to touch on those different aspects as I tell the story of this development. So really, it began actually before I came to ASU. I came to ASU about 2 years ago. But prior to that, all the way back in 2016, ASU was partnering with Inscribe as they were advancing student success within an environment at that time that was called the Global Freshman Academy. It's now part of our earned admissions program. It's actually an outstanding program. Something to note about ASU is we never turn a student down for admission. If a student doesn't meet our admissions requirement, we provide them an opportunity to enter into an earned admissions program, which used to be the Global Freshman Academy. These are open courses that students can access. There's really only a $25 identification fee at the beginning. Students can take the course, and if they successfully pass the course, at the end of the course, they can pay $400 in order to get the ASU credits and an ASU transcript. They can transfer those to another institution, or they can if they pass 4 of those courses, they can then enter and be admitted into ASU Online. And so it's actually a great program. I think one of the key features of this is these open courses can have as many as over 600 students. Right now, we just launched a new accounting course, an adaptive Cogbooks course in accounting. Has 600 students now. It has a faculty facilitator and a graduate TA that is supporting the 600 students as they move through the course. And you can imagine, having that kind of facilitation, we needed a way to help support that many students with questions. And so in doing that, that's when ASU engaged Inscribe, and it has become a partner. And something I really want to emphasize is that Inscribe has helped develop and grow over time to support the needs of the faculty and the students within these different environments, and really as we move across modalities. So that partnership is something that we value, and has really paid off, I think, a win-win-win. So that's when this started. Initially, we implemented in 4 math courses as listed here, and we had as many as 75,000 students that were using Inscribe in these courses. We continue to expand that usage. As I mentioned, we're now implementing using Inscribe in the newly launched accounting course. And the way we operate that in the math courses, for example, with that many students, is we have a series of coaches. These are typically students. Most of them are ASU undergraduates, but also a few master students. And these coaches are trained to monitor the questions within the Inscribe environment. And then they're able to give support and response to the students on a fairly quick turnaround, typically less than 24 hours. Students can also answer and support each other's questions. And so you can imagine, let's say you're in a different time zone, and it's 2 a.m. Arizona time for you, and your instructors are asleep, but you have a question, and so you post your question, and maybe someone in a similar time zone can say, hey, you know what, I had a difficult time with linear functions as well. I feel your pain. But then another student in another neighboring country could say, well, you know what, here's how I answer that problem. And then let's say 7 a.m., 8 a.m. Arizona time rolls around, and the faculty member or coach wakes up, logs in. They can actually look at those questions and responses and, oh, wow, that's a really good answer. I'm going to endorse that. But I'm also going to add a comment of my own. And here's a different way of responding. So you can imagine creating that kind of environment helps students so they don't feel alone. And it gives them an opportunity to really ask questions 24/7 and get rapid responses. And so when I came on in 2020, I was, oh, actually, here's how that happens. Katie, do you want to kind of go through this?
Yeah, sure. So these are some views of what the students would actually encounter in their courses when they launched into Inscribe. And as Julie mentioned, the primary goals of using an Inscribe learning community are, getting students to support and answers more quickly, because as Julie mentioned, it's not just about getting answers from my faculty member or my coach, but also from other peers. And then all of the answers that are gathered up are tagged and stored in a repository. So you can see in the upper right-hand corner here, there's a search bar. So when a student comes in and has a question, the first thing they can do is search to see if somebody's already asked and answered this question. You can also see that even if they were to bypass that search and start asking their question right away, if you look on the bottom, you can see there's a little pop-up. Do any of these answer your question? And so even if they skip the search altogether and go to ask a question, the system is actually going to automatically search for them and try and nudge them toward the answers and the content that already exist in the community. So really we're saying, how quickly can we get this student to a resolution? But at the same time, doing that in a way that allows whoever's supporting those students to work really efficiently. So we're sort of giving time back to the faculty and coaches who otherwise might be answering the same question, 50 or 100 times. And by sort of extending the reach of these communities. Julie talked a little bit about Global Freshman Academy, and I don't know if you mentioned the numbers on that earlier slide, but upwards of 75, 100,000 students might be in some of those big scale courses. And having a shared space where they can ask questions then is really important for the efficiency of those classes. But that same model also extended into ASU Online, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then if you look at the sort of image just to the back, there's also an example there of some of the resources that were added. So Inscribe is driven a lot by this sort of Q&A and conversation space, but it also has spaces where you can put short videos or other sort of supplemental content that might help your students, might also help answer some of the questions that your students have. And ASU's done an amazing job of using the questions that students were asking to drive the creation of these little micro learning videos that would end up in their Inscribe repository. So now students have multiple ways to get help when they need it. And the only other thing, I think we're going to talk about this a little bit as well in a minute, but these views that you're seeing here are ones that the student would encounter as integrated into the tools that they're already using. So whether that's the learning management system or the math courseware that they're using from a publisher, in order to access Inscribe, they just have one-click access from those systems, and it will launch Inscribe. And actually Inscribe, through that integration, can know specifically what a student was working on, and it will surface the answers and the content that are specific to, let's say, whatever skill or particular topic the student was working on in the host system as well. So that deep integration really facilitates the discovery for the student as well. So I'll pause there. I'm sure we'll talk more about some of those features later. And if you have any questions about how the platform works, please post them. We're happy to answer them as well.
And those integrations are critical, and they help not only the student, but also the faculty member, and they save a lot of time in terms of understanding what the actual question is that the students were working on. So when I came on board, we started to look at what was happening in our ASU Online math courses. We really jumped at the opportunity to use Inscribe to help support both the faculty as well as the students. As you can see, we have right now already over 11,000 students, over 100 sections, and section sizes can be as high as 250 students. ASU is scaling rapidly. We are seeing probably 20–25% year-over-year growth across our programs. The math courses have been growing faster, and so in some cases they can observe as much as a 40% year-over-year growth. So you can imagine the scaling and the number of students is happening very rapidly. And we want to do whatever we can to help support the faculty in communicating with the students and helping the students be successful in these courses. Something I'll add in here that the faculty have really commented that has worked for them is as we're able to implement Inscribe across multiple sections, the instructors are actually answering questions from students in other sections. And what the faculty observed in doing that is it allowed for students to be exposed to different teaching approaches and different ways to answer specific math problems. So once again, I think it increases collaboration not only between students to students and faculty to student, but also the faculty to faculty communications.
I was just going to say, I think that's such an important point that certainly you can use Inscribe in kind of a one-to-one, one course section to one learning community model. But some of the power that you get is when you're able to take, multiple sections who are really learning the same content and have them all share a single Inscribe community on the back end. And, as you pointed out, the exposure that you get to lots of different students, but also lots of different faculty and coaches through that model. And the part I love the most is, knowing that the faculty really liked that model and really bought into it. I think also speaks to like the fact that it really does work and help support them as well.
I think we'll get more and more time to talk about models, hopefully, as we move through the presentation. So please feel free to ask questions. But our use of Inscribe is continuing to expand into other disciplines and across ASU Online and even campus now. And as that happens, we're seeing a variety of different models for actually using it. So I think faculty can be really creative, and this tool is very adaptable. And so that's a big part of the fun and the innovation here. So I think some of the key points to emphasize around what we were seeing in our math courses. So certainly ASU for years has been working on active and adaptive learning within our campus environments. And they had driven success rates, have been really successful in driving success rates within the campus environment to, in some cases over 80% for college algebra. But the ASU Online sections had a significant gap, probably about in the low 40s in terms of pass rates. And so we were really wanting to close that gap and find ways to help support our students. A big part of that is how do you engage them? How do you add applied learning? How do you provide support to them? Many of our online students, as you can imagine, it's not uncommon to have a single parent who works full time, and they're only able to do their schoolwork, on the weekends, and often it'll be Sunday night, and their assignments are due Sunday night at 11:59 p.m. Arizona time, and they're they started working 9 p.m. after they put their kids to bed, and all of a sudden they have questions. And so what we found is we can actually add learning assistants to help operate the platform and answer these questions, or the students can help support each other answering these questions for individuals who really needed that quick real-time support at the times in which many of those students were actually doing the work. And so this kind of gives you just a diagram of what that model looked like for college algebra. And so certainly the learning assistant. So in this particular model, and imagine we have, probably, I'm going to say 7 to 8 sections of, up to 250 students, several thousand students within a single term or section. And in order to support them, we hired 10 learning assistants. So these are peer students. Most of them are undergraduates who have taken the course previously. What we find is that students are more comfortable in many cases asking some questions to a peer, and if there's they relate very well to a peer, another undergraduate student who's taken the course. And then we, Katie can explain more about the different types of channels that are available with Inscribe. But with our college algebra course, we actually took all of those sections and created a channel so that all of the math questions would be pulled into a single channel. And then the learning assistants could then monitor that channel. And so if anyone asked a question, like I said, that student working Sunday night, how do I solve a linear function? It could be another student coming in saying, well, yeah, I'm struggling with that too. And then a third student coming in, well, here's how I did it. And then a learning assistant can follow that up and endorse it, provide new information. And then the faculty member can come in the next day and do a follow-up. And so once again, they're getting multiple points of engagement and contact. And I can show you some data on that towards the end. But also another key feature of this is embedding those resources within the platform and the ability, the AI-driven ability to search for resources. Many students, and what I haven't told you is my son is an ASU Online student. He lives with me. He's 18 years old, still lives with me, and took one of the courses in the fall that we piloted. So I actually got to watch this in real time, and it was actually a lot of fun. But you can imagine putting those searchable resources. So once you type in, how do you solve a linear function, the student is then exposed to all the other questions that students have asked around linear functions, all of the resources that we already have. So videos or text resources that they can turn to. So in many cases, they can help themselves and solve their own problem. And once again, that can really help with self-regulated learning, building their confidence and allowing them, to efficiently complete the assignment. And then finally, once again, I mentioned early on the collaborations have been critical. So, ASU, Inscribe, and McGraw-Hill, collaborated to integrate this, not only within Canvas, but also within the ALEX platform for college algebra and college mathematics, once again, to facilitate the use for the students. And then also to allow faculty and coaches to see what the students were working on at the time that they asked that question.
We had one question that came, I'm trying to monitor the chat here, very active. One question that came in was around using Inscribe for subjects so math has sort of definitive, answers for the most part. Some people would probably disagree with that, but and the question was about whether Inscribe gets used outside of some of those more yes and no type subjects. So I'll say, just generally speaking, yes, Inscribe is actually can be used really in any topic area, and has been, in subjects like English, psychology, religion, business, accounting, math, you name it. We've done work there. At Arizona State, we initially focused in the math area, but I think Julie will talk a little bit later about some of the places that we're now expanding the use of Inscribe into, which include some of those other topic areas.
Oh, absolutely. And in our open scale environment, the earned admissions courses, we've used it to support anthropology, chemistry, accounting, so multiple disciplines there. I think our initial use within ASU Online has been in math, but that's growing now. We're talking to the business school for implementing in business. We're going to implement it in our English composition courses. Once again, it's about communication and timely information to our students. And once again, keep in mind, particularly for our online students, many of them are working. Well, actually, I wouldn't even limit that to online. We see this in our campus courses as well. Our faculty are asking us to implement this on campus, and we're moving in that direction. But, it's not uncommon for even campus students to be working on a Sunday night to get the assignment done. And they have questions, and this is a community that they can turn to. And it's not just about getting the questions answered, but also support for each other. We had an assignment in one of our courses where we had the students introduce themselves. We had some of our students who are returning maybe after a decade, back to school and saying, oh my gosh, I haven't taken a math course, in 10 years. I'm afraid of math. I hate math. And I love to watch. You'll have 5 other students come in and say, hey, don't worry about it. You can do this. Or, hey, I know exactly how you feel. We can do it together. And I love to see that kind of community support happening within the students. So I think there are so many different possibilities and aspects to this community learning approach. And we're really only, I think, just starting to scratch the surface and understand what all can happen. But this graphic here shown on the screen, this kind of just gives you an idea. You can imagine, a student, sitting at home, they're working on their assignment. In this particular case, it looks like they're doing geometry, but let's say they're doing, college algebra. They encounter a question. So what do? You could go online, you could search YouTube, you could search, Khan Academy or different Google resources, but really those don't always use the language, that our math faculty want the students to learn, and not always taking the approach that our math faculty would to answering these questions. So with Inscribe, they can directly go right within that learning environment to their classmates, to their peers, to the faculty, to the learning assistants. They can ask a question. How do you solve linear functions? Like I said, once again, with the search engine, in many cases, those resources will just readily pop up and students can actually get a quick answer and move on. If it's more complicated or they still have questions, they can then type it into the Inscribe platform. Like I said, it could be answered quickly by another student, by a learning assistant. They get the answer, and then once again, this allows them to then move on. Our data is starting to show that the timeliness of getting an answer and support is critical for these students to be able to move through their work, their learning, and to stay on track towards success. For ASU Online, most of our courses are 7.5 weeks. So they are accelerated in comparison to a traditional 15-week semester. And so once again, having that a timely response is critical for the success of our students. So we piloted this in just the fall in ASU Online, and we started with 3 courses, multiple sections. So college algebra, college mathematics, which is actually our non-STEM mathematics. That's actually the course my son took. Pre-calculus, and over 4,000 students, 23 sections. We we were only wanting to help students access resources, get them quick responses and support, so just-in-time support, streamline questions and answers. So once again, make it more efficient for the faculty. And then the other key piece is it allows us to collect, those frequently asked questions. And this helps us in a variety of different ways. One, helps us to quantify, areas of the curriculum that may need additional resources, or that, a specific lecture may need to be updated or revised to help the understanding of the students, or provide different problem sets to help students with support. And so what we saw, I didn't realize this was, here we go. So what we saw in college mathematics, and so keep in mind, college mathematics online is already doing quite well. I think the instructors have really found ways to design and support. So they had already a 71% pass rate. And in the fall, we were able to increase that by about almost 2%. So we were happy with that. We're trying to work to get these courses at least up to 80% pass rates. I think where we saw the greatest impact is in college algebra. But I just want to go back, talking about college mathematics. Another impact that we saw, in terms of both faculty efficiency, but also decreases in withdrawal rates and significant increases in A grades. And that was even more prevalent in college algebra. And you can see we're starting at a much lower point with college algebra with a success rate of 47%. And we're able to drive that up about 9% to 55%. But once again, it wasn't just the pass rate. It was also a decrease in withdrawal rates. So students were actually staying through the entire session for the course. And we saw probably about a 10% increase in A grades. And that was once again showing us, so it's not just that we're helping students pass, but we're also helping students who are already passing master those learning outcomes at a higher rate. And so our research will now take us to follow those students into their subsequent math courses. So as a student moves from college algebra into pre-calculus, how does that increased learning help support them in that next course and then on into calculus? And so that's going to be important analysis for us. And so, based on those success rates, we're of course super excited. I've been, basically going around and engaging as many of the faculty units as I can around what we're seeing. It's rare for me to see that type of an impact in a first-time pilot, and so it was also relatively easy to implement this. Now, I'm sure Katie and my team are probably shaking their head right now saying, well, it wasn't as easy as Julie said it was, but I think it was relatively easy. We were able to integrate these and get them online really, I think within a week. Faculty
it's actually pretty.
Is it easy? Okay, so the faculty were able to get trained fairly quickly. Many of our faculty already had experience with other types of platforms like this, so they kind of had a general idea of how to use. I think Piazza is one of the ones that our faculty had used previously, and so they had some familiarity with using technology like this. I think this upped it, increased the support load, and so we were able to we've expanded this to business calculus or brief calculus, our level 1 calculus for engineers. Those pilots happened in spring A. Something to keep in mind, ASU Online has 2 sessions for every semester. So we have a fall A, fall B, spring A, spring B. So it gives us 6 times a year where we can actually kind of test and iterate and measure what happens. And I'm running out of time, aren't I?
We have about 9 minutes to go. So
anyway, we continue to see it. And once again, note, we're already starting at a higher success level. So we didn't see a huge bump, but once again, we're seeing the increases in A grades and increased faculty efficiency. And then we did see almost an equivalent increase in success rate in college algebra. And we continue to implement. Katie, will you talk through the analytics for me?
Sure, I'll just mention, so within Inscribe, of course, you can look and see what everyone is doing in the communities and kind of keep track over time. One of the measures that we like to look at beyond just, who are students coming in, are they asking questions, are they, getting answers, which you can see in the graph in the back, We also want to look at how much is the content of the community being reused. So how many views are we getting on the existing resources? And I think it's really interesting to see. So within this math community, I can't see how many questions. So 400 or so questions asked, but about 20,000 views of those questions. So it really speaks to the reusability of the content and the fact that one student's question can amplify and benefit a whole population of learners if it's just presented in a way that they can access it easily.
And certainly college algebra was our most active community. So the results were amplified in college algebra. But if you look across all of the courses where we implemented, we saw, we had over 8,000 community members. So that's faculty, staff, learning assistants, over 40,000 resource views. Resource views were very popular with the students. They appreciated having that quick and easy access to all of the resources in a searchable format. And then of course the conversation views. And what I saw here at home with my son is he very much took advantage of the, what was happening within the platform, even though he did not always necessarily ask a question of his own. And so this is, we're starting to get into, I'm sorry, my, not everything transferred over when I created the PowerPoint. So we're missing a little bit of the legend there. But this kind of gives you an idea. I don't know if you can see my cursor or not. But this is really a network map of kind of all the interactions that happen within some of our one of our college algebra sessions. Doug, up in the upper right is one of our lead instructors, and then Lance is also the course coordinator. And then all of the yellow nodes are the learning assistants. And then Julia had a smaller section in college algebra, and you can see each of these connections that are happening within that community, and each color represents, a different type of interaction. So a reply or a vote, an answer, a sharing post, or asking a question. And so we're starting to do our analysis on this. I think probably equally important is what we're hearing from our students and from our faculty. So once again, that faculty success and student success moving in parallel, certainly increase efficiency for our faculty, makes it much easier to respond to students. They had multiple channels, so they had a channel for just math questions and a channel for course or section questions. And then students, once again, loved being able to get opinions from classmates and their help for issues or math problems. Just knowing others might be going through what I was experiencing eased my anxiety. So once again, to hear that I think is almost as important as getting your questions answered. And that's where that community aspect comes in, and that's something that we think is really important. And then, like I said, it involved multiple partners as we advance this. And I know I'm running out of time, but we continue to expand. And so I think my vision for this, as I keep interacting with my colleagues and other faculty, is really to try to have Inscribe as a consistent technology for students to be able to engage with each other, create community, ask questions within courses, but also ask questions, as they're being admitted, and as they have questions around advising and enrollment. Once again, this is a way to help support our advisors as we continue to scale our programs. And then, we have plans to several courses, or we call them our high impact general ed courses. These are the high enrollment, high attrition courses, looking at, as many as, I think, I'm trying to think, as many as 80,000 enrollments that I ideally would like us to get to at some time. So, and I think, is that it? I think we're done.
We are.
Did I make it?
You made it. And
Sorry to rush everyone.
no, you did great. And there was a question from Erica, which I answered in the chat, but I'll say here. The question was about the use of Inscribe for graduate students versus undergrad. And I had just said, we actually see very similar patterns of behavior with graduate students. In fact, they are sometimes even more active in answering each other's questions and sort of jumping in. Sometimes in the graduate space, because programs are a little smaller, the community will actually be around the entire program. So, if a student is getting a nursing degree or an MBA, they'll have a community that kind of wraps around that entire experience versus one class after another. But if you're curious or you want to learn more, you can certainly reach out to us. I want to thank Dr. Greenwood, Julie, for this amazing presentation.